Hey guys, so something that I hear a lot, we've actually heard it for years and stuff, but something that I'm hearing more and more again now is this whole Molon Labe, come and take it, pry it from my dead fingers. And it's just this kind of voice of defiance and stuff like that. And I wanted to kind of address that real quick if I could. Some of you guys need to kind of take a step back and ask yourself what that's going to look like. What is that going to look like in reality? I want you to actually paint this picture in your mind. I want you to think this thought all the way through, and think about what this is going to actually look like when they, for instance, they pass a law and they say, okay, it's illegal for you to have a gun, and you're like, that's it, you crossed the line, and I'm gonna lash out at you and whatever, take up arms against the government and stuff like that. What is that going to actually look like in reality? How do you think that picture is going to play out? I would venture to say that most of you have not actually thought about what that's going to look like, and or have not seen a realistic picture of what that looks like. I'm not advocating for or against any of this. I'm just trying to get you to think the thought all the way through. The reason that I say that is this: because even in the Christian faith, one of the things that Jesus admonished us to do was to count the costs. Count the costs of what it is to be a Christian. He talked about a builder who goes out and he starts a building project but doesn't have enough money to finish it, and the project ends up stopping midway and the guy ends up looking like a fool. He talks about a king who goes to war, but he doesn't plan out all of the components and kind of take into consideration all of the men that he needs and the supplies that he needs, and then he gets involved in the battle and ends up losing epically. The idea is that when you undertake something that is so significant like that you need to count the cost. Again, in the Christian faith, we have this idea that, okay, we're saved from our sins, we're forgiven, we're brought into this relationship with Christ, but that comes with a cost. A lot of times it comes with a cost of our convictions. Sometimes it comes at a cost of honoring our convictions. Sometimes it comes at a cost of severed relationships, of maybe relationships that diminish or that go away entirely because of the fact that as Christians we can't participate in things because we value Christ more than those things. But the idea is that Jesus admonishes his followers to, look, you want to follow me, that's great, but I want you to consider what it is that you're signing up for. You're not just signing up for peace, joy, love, happiness, and so on and so forth, because Jesus said, if the world hated me, they're going to hate you. He said that there will be trials and tribulations in this life. He did not mince words. He said there's going to be good with the bad. You need to understand that what you're signing up for is the fellowship of the saints, but also the fellowship of the suffering as well. And I want you to think about that for those of you guys who are looking at things through this perspective of, I'm going to lash out onto the world and I'm going to unleash holy hell if they come for my guns or they do this or that or whatever. What is that going to actually look like? Stop for a minute and count the cost. What is that going to look like? How do you picture that actually unfolding? Well, you take up arms against the government. What do you think is going to happen? You think it's going to be a Robin Hood situation where all of these people are going to rally behind you and they're going to support you and this and that? You think you're going to lash out from 6 p.m. until 8 a.m. because you got to be at work at 9? Who's going to feed your family when you go out there lashing out? Who's going to supply your resources? Who's going to, what kind of costs are involved here? And again, I'm not in any way trying to diminish the constitutionality of rebelliousness and our ability to lash out accordingly. I'm not in any way trying to diminish that. I'm just trying to get you to think for a minute what that actually looks like. Do you think the people are going to rally behind you? Do you think the people are going to rally behind you when the media is weaponized against you? And all of a sudden, what started out as, you know, my ability to stand up to my government for my constitutional rights, my God-given rights, and then the media begins to twist that and pervert it and turn it into something like right-wing white supremacy, this and that, and you're like, what are you talking about? You know, I'm not a racist, I'm not this and that. But the entire media begins to become weaponized against you and starts coming against you. Are you prepared to stand alone? And I mean truly alone. Are you prepared to have your family turned against you? Are you prepared to never see your family again? One of the things that John Bunyan had to do when he took his stand against England at the time, he was jailed and imprisoned not for preaching the gospel, because England was a Christian nation. He was jailed for not obtaining a permit to preach the gospel. He had to get government authority in order to preach the gospel. And John Bunyan was like, no, I mean, you don't have the authority to require that of me. So he spent 11 years in prison. What do you think happened to his family at that time? How do you think John Bunyan had to actually deal with that? Well, one of the things that he talks about in one of his books is he talks about how he had to actually release that to God. That was something that weighed heavy on his heart. We all love our wives. We all love our kids. We all love our family. But at some point, he had to release that to God and say, God, I'm taking a stand for this principle. I'm preaching the gospel. It's not the government's authority, or it's not the government's right, rather, to give me that authority. You have given me that authority. And as a result, I'm going to do this because it's what you called me to do, even if my family suffers. Are you willing to watch your family suffer as a result of your convictions? Are you willing to be shamed? Because that's what it will come to. I think we all have this vision in our mind about how we're going to be idolized as these patriots, and, you know, we're going to be this and that. History may view you that way 100 years from now, but chances are, in the moment right now, you'll never see that. You will be viewed as a terrorist. You will be viewed as someone who is, you'll be viewed as the lowest that you can be. So count those costs. Have you actually considered? Now, having counted the costs, if you decide that you're going to stand by your convictions and you're going to move forward with whatever it is that you're thinking, by all means. But count the cost first. Because there's a romantic image in most people's minds about what that's going to look like, and I don't think that actually lines up with reality. So you guys think about that. Train hard.